on 1250 WHNZ WHNZ. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Jamie Meloni.
Hi again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 WHNZ WHNZ. You'll find my show on every Mondays at noon, so I invite you to please tune in as my show aims to become your information source for the Tampa Bay real estate market. I'm a local real estate agent with Coldwell Banker, and I specialize in the sale of bank-owned properties, and been on air since about September of last year, bringing my wealth of knowledge and experience to the airwaves to help you navigate the Tampa Bay marketplace that much more efficiently. I'd like to take a moment to go ahead and promote my new website. I've been talking about that on the show for the last couple of months, but it is now up and running. If you go to tampabayradio.com, again, tampabayradio.com, you're going to see a lot more features. I've merged that with my old site, the tampabayreo.com site, so you'll be able to see a lot of you'll be able to see all of our listings on that site, as well as our upcoming properties in the search properties section under pre-list properties, and got a lot of great tools on there, including a very detailed property analysis worksheet where you can analyze investment properties. You'll find that on the tools tab of the menu bar. And also, you'll see all of my prior shows and past guest information. Still working on updating that part of the site, but great information on there. Also, you can hear the live audio and the live stream available on the show info tab as well. In studio today, I've got the lovely Stella Giudicelli with me. Stella, how are you doing?
Bonjour, Jamie. I'm very good today. Thank you.
How was the weekend?
Well, the weekend was with you, as you know, at the office, and Easter Sunday together with Christina. So
yes, a very enjoyable weekend. I hope everybody did have a happy Easter weekend. A lot of us had an extended break, and not myself. I shouldn't say all of us, but a lot of people had a nice 3-day weekend. So we're all back to work. So hoping everybody has a great Monday here on this post Easter week here. On the show today, you got two great guests coming on. We're going to have Michael Meloni. That's a different spelling. He's not of any relation, but Michael Meloni, a New York City appraiser with also ties to the Naples, Florida area. He's also a real estate broker in that area. So we're going to be talking about appraisals and the New York City and Naples markets. And on the second half of the show, we're going to be talking with Hunter Norton. He's an attorney with Shoemaker, Loop & Kendrick, and we're going to be talking all about tax certificates and HOA issues and eviction and tenant law. So please stay tuned for that in the second half of the show. But right now, I want to go ahead and bring on my first guest. Michael Meloni is a New York State certified residential appraiser servicing the high-end downstate New York market for over 25 years. His firm has expertise in all types of residential appraisals, and he has appraised some of the most expensive and luxurious properties in the United States in New York City. Michael is also a licensed real estate broker in both New York and Florida, focusing on representing buyers for golf course communities, waterfront properties, and vacation homes in Southwest Florida, primarily the Naples and Marco Island areas. Michael, welcome to the show.
Jamie, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Michael, tell me a little bit more about yourself and your company and experience, and how you got to become a real estate professional in both the Naples and New York City areas.
Well, first of all, it's nice talking to a fellow University of South Florida Bull graduate. I graduated from the University of South Florida College of Business
Hey, go Bulls.
with a finance degree. And right after college, I came back to New York, and I got into the appraisal market. I was going to go to work for a major life insurance company, but last minute I decided to go with my heart and get into the appraisal market. And it's been very rewarding, And then I opened up my own business, 3 years right out of school, and graduated up to probably about 45 to 50 appraisers during the height, working for my business, appraising Metro New York area, which consists of the 5 boroughs and Long Island markets as well. And it has some of the most expensive real estate in the nation, both on the North Shore of Long Island, the Hampton market, and the New York City condo market.
Yeah, that's quite impressive, to be servicing that market, especially with the success that you've had, in that area.
yes, Michael, it's Stella speaking. Could you tell us, what I found very different in your profile is that you work in New York City as well as Naples. How come do you tackle those both areas in your profession?
Yes, Florida is a big love of mine. I have kids going to college down there as well. And I chose the Naples market because we've been vacationing down in Southwest Florida for probably about 10 years between Naples and Marco Island. And Jamie would know, as a broker, you have bigger commissions when you sell more expensive properties, and there's a lot of luxury real estate down that way.
Mm-hmm.
I also sell default real estate in New York. Got into that back in the early 90s. We were selling it all through Brooklyn. You could put zeros on the numbers. We were selling units for 250,000 brownstones, and they're probably worth 1.5 now with the what has happened in the Brooklyn market.
Now, Michael, the Florida real estate market saw record high values in 2006. Values in our area went on to drop 40 to 50% from that point, bottoming out around 2012. They've been on an upward trend for the past 2 years, but now they're starting to level off. How does this compare to the market in New York City?
New York City market is very hot right now. There's very little inventory. I act as a buyer's broker in New York City. I probably sold about 4 apartments the last quarter in there. The average price per square foot in New York City for residential is probably about just under $1,400, according to Trulia, about $1,384 a square foot. So if you take, for instance, a typical apartment, which is a 2-bedroom apartment, 1,000 square feet, you're looking at probably $1.4 million, and you have a lot of empty nesters going into the city. Basically, New York City, as John Lennon would say, is the Rome of the world.
Right.
Everybody wants to come here and work here, and there's a very big demand for housing.
Now, our recent market appreciation has been due in large part to large institutional Wall Street-based and foreign investors buying up a lot of the inventory. And they came into our market around 2012. What's driving New York values right now?
Yeah, that's pretty exciting, Jamie. That one of them was the Blackstone Group. Is that correct?
Yes, they're one of them, and there's about 5. They kind of all came into the market all about the same time. They were probably the hottest buyer in the market, and they still are, but they've all leveled off a pretty good bit since values have come up. But what's driving the New York values right now and the demand?
Wall Street and the Dow in New York, because we're out in the Hamptons as well. And anytime the Dow is doing real well, and there's money being made in the financial markets, it means there's good jobs in there, and all the hot shots that are living and working in the financial markets, they need places to live in Manhattan, and they're buying vacation homes out in the Hamptons as well.
Okay. Michael, we know that New York has many laws that favor tenants and restrict owners' rights. And one of those is rental control, something that we don't have here in our area. Can you explain to the audience how rent control works in New York?
Yes, rent control was brutal for landlords. But the thing about rent control is people don't realize it was an FDR program, and it was instituted probably like 1943 to 50, and that's where they actually locked down a rent on a unit, and it would never increase. So you might, if you have a three-family house, and the going market rent for 2 or 3 bedroom in that house would be anywhere right now about $2,500 to $3,000 in Brooklyn or Queens. You can still have a person living in a rent control apartment paying $150.
Incredible.
Rent,
That's just
incredible. I think it's gone up, just a little bit. But the thing about rent control is it's really not big a problem. It only represents about 1.8% of the total units in the metro New York area. Is that it expires upon the death of the person occupying that apartment.
So it's not transferable to any heirs or anything then?
No, correct? I think if the kids can take it over, but but they have to stay in the unit.
That's an interesting feature, something that I'm not familiar with, and since you had experience up in the New York market, just thought I'd take a quick moment to kind of learn a little bit more about that and how that affects your marketplace. Michael, stay on the line here for a moment. I got to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. If you're just tuning in, you've been listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 WHNZ WHNZ. Back in a moment.
Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage want you to experience the thrill of one-day underwriting and the comfort in knowing your loans will be clear to close in record time. While the competition looks to a lost closing date, Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage focus on their 12-day clear to close. They do this by utilizing their world-class operations staff to underwrite your loan within 6 hours, process your loan in 12 days, and have your loan closed in time. Underwritten in 6 hours, cleared to close in 12 days. Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage. Since opening its doors 120 years ago, Stewart Title Company has established a lasting legacy of providing professional title services. Even other title insurance companies know Stewart Title Company because they do their actual underwriting for them. Stewart is here to provide a wide range of resources to help improve any real estate transaction. To learn more about protecting yourself against hidden title hazards that may threaten your financial investment, call Melissa Stoddard at 813-431-8025. That's 813-431-8025.
Thinking about buying a home? Find out how the Hud Home Store can help you. Visit HUDHomestore.com. Look at HUD homes available for sale near you or nationwide. Why Hud Home Store? HUD will pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing cost. The price of the home is based on an FHA as-is appraisal, which is already completed, saving you an average of $400. And there is an owner-occupant priority bidding period during the first 30 days. Want to know more? Visit HUDHomestore.com.
You're listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show with local expert Jamie Meloni. Now, here's Jamie.
Hi again, everybody, and thanks for staying tuned in to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 Wins WHNZ. We've been talking with Michael Meloni, a New York State appraiser with ties also to the Naples, Florida area, and I'm going to go ahead and continue the conversation here with him. Michael, New York City has just elected its first Democratic mayor since 1993, Bill de Blasio. With regard to housing, he's went against the New York City Housing Authority decision to cut the number of Section 8 vouchers to low-income New Yorkers, and he's recently launched an online New York City's worst landlords watch list to track dangerous living conditions. How are New York City investors and building owners viewing him at this point?
He's actually a fan of low-income housing, which if you're a developer and you can get those contracts, it's pretty good because they're very subsidized by both the federal, state, and city levels, and it's aiding in rebuilding some blighted areas. As far as the landlord list, those lists have been around for a long time. It was just other advocates that were looking out for the landlord tenants. Because New York does have a history of having some very bad tenants, landlords, I should say, and they have to be monitored from time to time. Mm-hmm. But as far as being an advocate of the Section 8 housing, that is actually a plus for landlords, because landlords do like Section 8 government.
Yeah, it's a very good point you bring up right there. A lot of people kind of cringe a little bit at the thought of Section 8, but I always explain to people, at least in our area, and I'm not sure if it's the same in New York City, but there's a long waiting list for people to get onto Section 8 housing, which is a subsidy that allows, low-income people to get into properties and then have the local government or the government subsidize their rents. But they're very, well-behaved tenants, because if you do anything, to, harm the landlord's property, the landlord can file a complaint with the, the housing authority, and you can get removed from the program. So a lot of people, are very diligent in their efforts to, be great tenants in these properties. Is that the same up in New York?
Yes, it is. And for instance, with the Section 8, for a one-bedroom New York, gas and electric included, they will pay the landlord $1,336 for a one-bedroom, $1,584 for a two-bedroom, and $2,037 for a three-bedroom.
Yeah, I myself think it's a great program, and
those are pretty big numbers.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of education on behalf of the landlord to get into the program and understand it. But you can get in my opinion some great rent returns in our market, higher than what you can get just trying to find your own tenant. I think so. People out there that are not looking into Section 8, I highly recommend that they take a look into it for the points we were just talking about.
Yes, and I actually owned like 4 multifamilies, like 3 and 4 family buildings back in the 90s, and I had a lot of Section 8 tenants in there, and it can be a little rough on the units. But yeah, during the Clinton years with the welfare reform, they started pulling in the reins on the vouchers that they were paying, so it wasn't really beneficial to have the Section 8 in at the time. So it's good and bad in every decision.
So just from what you were saying there about Mayor de Blasio, I mean, do you feel that he's going to be of a benefit to the New York housing market, or is it too early to say?
It's neutral, But he's got his other issues. He's chasing a lot of New Yorkers out of New York, out of the city. He's trying to tax the rich, and you're actually getting a lot of the hedge funds. They're relocating to Palm Beach County and making sure that they're staying in Palm Beach for 6 months and a day, and then they come back to the Hamptons for the summer. So he's going to be losing a lot of tax rolls. That's one of his big complaints. And unrelated to real estate, he's attacking. He started a war on the charter schools, which is actually a good thing for the minorities in New York City. But he's repaying his teacher union votes, and Bloomberg was very good with the charter schools. But so he's got other issues with New York that
Yeah, he's definitely making a statement. I mean, I see a lot of stuff about him in the news and stuff. So just kind of want to hear a little bit firsthand by somebody that's involved in the market firsthand up there. Now, Michael, the Naples area that you also specialize in is probably likely night and day to what you experience in New York City real estate. Explain to me and the audience some of the cultural real estate differences you see between these two very different environments.
Well, in New York, we do have luxury real estate, and we're seeing that in Naples with the luxury. Naples has a big influx of Midwestern buyers, as does the Tampa Bay area with I-75, because historically, they jumped in a station wagon years ago and come into Florida on 75, and Northeast comes down 95, and that's why Boston and New York used to be on the East Coast. But Naples, there's a mass exodus leaving the Midwest right now on these highly taxed states like Illinois. You have 70-plus million baby boomers that are going to be retiring, and the market is really hot in Naples. It's up 12 and 13% in Collier County year over year, and they're expecting like a 30% boom over the next 3 years down there. So in my opinion, I think the next boom in Naples is going to make the last one look like a smaller boom.
Very good to hear, especially for us real estate brokers. Yeah. Now, you're also an appraiser. Explain to me a little bit about how the appraisal process may differ between these two markets. Is there differences in that?
Yes, I don't appraise in Florida just yet, but I appraise. I do all my appraising up in New York in the metro market, and basically my business in Florida is just mainly buyer's broker. I'm with Premier Plus, which is a very big agency down there, and I probably sold about 8 condos over the past year. And we like the buyers coming in. A lot of them come in with all cash buyers. Like my last deal was $1 million ask, and my purchaser was from Minnesota, and he got the unit for $900,000. And from contract to closing, it was 16 days from the time I walked them into the unit until check in hand. So it's just a very, very good market in terms of cash, cash buyers. And
very good to hear. Now, on the appraisal side, now you said you appraise just up in New York, and you're just working as a real estate broker here in Florida. But with the tightening lending restrictions in our markets place, specifically now that lenders can have no contact with appraisers, how has this impacted your business in New York?
It dramatically impacted my business, and I'm very fortunate that I got my real estate brokerage license back in 99 or 2000. I was a salesperson since 1986. And, it's an appraisal management firm. With the Dodd-Frank cleanup, it led to banks having to use appraisal management firms. So say, for instance, they're going to appraise, they have a third party that orders and maintains relationships with the appraisers, and that's fine. Most of them operate pretty good. But the problem that's going on right now is, like, if a big bank's going to give the appraisal management like $500 a piece, $350 should go through to the appraiser, $150 should go to the AMC just to manage the file.
Right.
What's going on with the AMCs now is they are taking upwards of 2/3 of the fee, and they're using the cheapest appraisers, not the best appraisers. So it's creating risk for the banks. And the Appraisal Institute, which I'm a member of, I have an SRA designation, which is the best institute in the country, out of Chicago. They're addressing this right now to the point that they're passing a law next year where they've come out where they're going to identify on the closing statements how much the appraisal management firm is getting and how much the appraiser itself is getting. Because right now it's just an appraisal services or something on that level. So
you're saying we're probably going to see some possible changes to this coming down the pipeline here?
Yes, to the closing statement, which would be similar to like a HUD one,
Yeah. Now, Michael, you also specialize in buyer representation as a real estate broker, and you have extensive experience in the default industry as well. How does the default market in New York City compare to the default market in Naples, for instance?
Well, I hear there's a lot of REO on deck in Florida. With the robo signing, kind of, 3 years ago, I probably had about 75 houses in my inventory. Probably about 3 years ago. Right now, I have 15 houses in New York in my inventory, and the whole foreclosure process doesn't happen. It takes a very long time to foreclose on a property in New York. You have people that are in major default, first and second mortgages, and they will go out and they will hire an attorney and give the attorney $2,000 a month to keep them in a house that is worth $2 million. So
it would take years for people to foreclose or for bank to foreclose on the house?
I think it takes 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Florida has a very, very slow process as well.
It has. There's been a recent change in our law that's speeding up the foreclosure process here in Florida. Florida House Bill 87 that was signed by our Governor Scott last year. And so in uncontested foreclosure proceedings, I mean, I'm seeing things go to the final foreclosure sale in 30, 60 days. But again, that's, just in uncontested cases. So definitely beforehand, though, it was 2 to 3 years to get through the foreclosure process in Florida. So it's definitely, a lot of the reason why, the market has been drug out for so long. So,
yeah,
but Michael,
puke, as they say, and then clean up, and that's what's happening. But yeah, I'm noticing that too in Florida. But I'm not a default broker down there. I'm just working with buyers there, and it's Jamie, as you know, if you're a foreclosure broker, it's very, very difficult managing these properties. You can have a property in your bin for 3 years and costly reports, and you end up getting 2% on the list side, and the selling agent's going to get 3% if he sells it. So,
well, Michael, I got to wrap up with you, but real quick, now you're in the Naples area, which isn't too far from here, and you specialize in buyer representation in that area. Real quick for the audience, go ahead and give out your contact information for the audience, please.
Yes, my name is Michael Meloni. I am a real estate appraiser, and I am an agent in Naples with Premier Plus. My phone number is 516-509-2184, and we're there to service any purchasing needs in Naples. I concentrate in the North Naples area, golf course and waterfront communities.
Great. Well, if you didn't get that information, I'll have that up on my website. He'll be in the TampaBayRadio.com in the past guest area, so you can definitely get his contact information. Michael, thank you very much for coming on the show. I've greatly enjoyed the interview, and you got a lot of great information for us out here in the Tampa Bay marketplace.
Jamie, thanks for having me, and I look forward to meeting you when I'm in Tampa the next time.
Sounds good. Give me a ring.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
If you're just tuning in, you've been listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 WHNZ WHNZ. Again, that was Michael Meloni, New York State appraiser, and also Florida real estate broker down in the Naples, Florida market. Stay tuned. Coming back from the break, we're going to have Hunter Norton, attorney with Shoemaker, Loop, and Kendrick, and we're going to be talking all about tax lien certificates, eviction, tenant law, and HOA disputes, so please stay tuned. And again, you've been listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 WHNZ WHNZ. Back in a moment.
Maintaining a healthy lawn is complicated and time-consuming. With ABC Pest Control's Green Lawn Service, you can make your lawn the envy of the neighborhood. Call ABC Pest Control toll-free at 877-888-PEST. That's 877-888-PEST.
Introducing An American Story with Tom Brokaw. Award-winning journalist and author Tom Brokaw covers newsworthy current events, historic figures, and notable moments in history that impact the lives of Americans today.
As more Americans live longer, there are some profound and welcome changes as well as the challenges. The challenges include the cost of health care, of course, and having enough money for a longer retirement. The changes, widows and widowers are no longer expected to have lonely lives just because a longtime mate dies. Roger Angell, the peerless New Yorker writer, recently wrote about life in his 90s, in which he was plainly looking for love, and not the Hallmark card kind of love. Online dating sites and singles cruises for seniors are popping up everywhere. You know, maybe those early bird specials are not just about discounted meals. Maybe the new lovebirds just want to get out of the restaurants early, get home, and, well, you know. I'm Tom Brokaw. This is an American story.
Is your body toxic? We acquire many diseases and fatalities by the chemicals that are in the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the food we eat. How do we survive? How do we prevent? We help by implementing vitamins in natural forms. BioVaccine is a complete natural liquid vitamin which gives your body A to Z vitamins and nutrients in proper balance to help you nourish your cells and fight disease. It is the equivalent to over 30 pills. Many vitamin pills and capsules are synthetic, which means they're chemically processed, which can cause more harm through toxicity. Have you noticed trouble losing weight, fatigue, muscle pain, decrease in libido, health deterioration? Your symptoms may be from improper or insufficient vitamin intake. Our bodies are no longer capable of obtaining the natural nutrient from our natural plant sources due to the amount of pesticides and multiple processing factors. BioVaccine contains natural plant source nutrients which can help your body assist and nourish your cells to help your body rejuvenate from the inside out. Call for your free bottle at 800-288-1961. For details, call BIOVAXINE at 800-288-1961.
Need AC? Call Simpson Air, the coolest guys in town. Log on to thecoolestguys.com.
This report brought to you by Preparation H. For hemorrhoid relief, step up to Preparation H relief with the power of 2. First, use Preparation H medicated wipes to soothe as they clean. Then Preparation H Maximum Strength Cream to relieve pain and burning. Look for Preparation H at Walmart. Use as directed.
From the Bright House Network's traffic center, southbound 275 slowing down on the exit ramp to Dale Mabry with a crash. No problems for you across the Bay Bridges. I-75 checking clear throughout Hillsborough and Pasco counties. There is a wreck in Pinellas County that's causing delays in both directions of US 19 at Gulf to Bay. See a traffic problem? Call the injury firm of Abrahamson and Uterick Hillsborough traffic tip line at 866-545-9595.
12:50 winds, weather center forecast. Cloud cover still lingering. Hopefully to see some sunshine through the afternoon hours. And with those highs today, slow climb into the mid and even a few upper 70s right now. Still mostly upper 60s throughout the various 68 Brandon, same for Bradenton, 67 Clearwater and Tampa. Lows in the lower 60s. Tomorrow near 80, then we'll see low 80s pretty much the rest of the week. More sunshine as well, and a small chance of rain only coming up on Thursday of this week, about 20%. Dow's up 24, NASDAQ gaining 11, S&P Index green by 3, Dow to 16,433. 1250 wins, WHNZ.
You're listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show with local expert Jamie Meloni. Now, here's Jamie.
Hi again, everybody, and thanks for staying tuned in to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 wins, WHNZ. You'll find my show on every Mondays at noon, so I invite you to please tune in as my show aims to become your information source for the Tampa Bay real estate market. Off air, you can find me at my new updated website, TampaBayRadio.com. Again, TampaBayRadio.com. And to all the potential home sellers in the Tampa Bay marketplace, I offer a free home valuation if you would text the word value to my cell phone, 813-760-8516. Again, 813-760-8516. Again, text the word value to that number, and I offer you a free home valuation to any of the listeners in the Tampa Bay real estate market. Going ahead and go into our second segment here. I've got Hunter Norton. He is an attorney with Shoemaker, Loop, and Kendrick in the Sarasota, Florida area, and focuses his practice on business, construction, and civil litigation. Prior to his legal career, Hunter was a non-commissioned officer in the United States Air Force, where he worked with advanced intelligence and reported to high-level officials. Later, he worked with a private company as a project manager responsible for the analysis of communication systems and authored detailed intelligence training manuals. Both of these experiences have given Hunter the tools necessary to effectively represent his clients with litigation and dispute resolution. Hunter, a graduate with highest honors of the Airman Leadership School in Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, has received numerous awards in his legal career and is with us today to talk all about tax certificates, tenant law, evictions, and HOA disputes. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you very much. Hunter, you have an impressive background that has led to your successes in the legal industry. How has your experience in the United States Air Force with intelligence handling better equipped you for dispute resolution now as an attorney?
Well, it's a good question, Jamie. I tell you, during my military career, one of the biggest things that I could learn was my adversary's weaknesses, but also my adversary's strengths. And that same protocol, I use it daily in my legal career. I'm primarily a litigator. You have to know that the other side is going to say something. They're going to have a response to your argument. And knowing, or at least anticipating as best you can what the other side is going to say, is how you're best going to be prepared going into a courtroom so that you can properly respond to that argument. You know, you don't want to be caught blindsided.
Absolutely.
And that's what I try and do, is anticipate what's going to happen and not ever be caught flat-footed or blindsided.
Now, Hunter, at the end of this month, the property taxes owed for 2013 become delinquent and go up for sale at the tax certificate sale/auction. Explain to the audience how tax lien certificates work.
Sure, it's a unique system. Basically what happens is taxes are actually liens on your property. They're imposed by the county in which the property, where the property is located. So, for example, for your Tampa audience, that would be Hillsborough County. The taxes right now we're paying, or should have paid by now, your 2013 taxes. Those taxes, even though you didn't get your tax bill until probably October or November of 2013, those taxes were actually a lien against your property effective January 1st of 2013. You then pay those taxes on or before April of 2014, the following year. If you do not pay your taxes, then what happens is to get paid for the taxes, the county sells a tax certificate at an auction. And the way that works, it's kind of inverse to the way you would normally think of an auction. When we think of an auction normally, we think that we're going to go and we're going to gradually bid up to our maximum price. Well, on a tax certificate, the price is set. The county says, okay, $2,000 are owed in taxes for this particular property. What the county then does is allow bidders to come in, and what the bidders do is they bid at an interest rate starting at 18% and then bidding down, such that the person or the entity who is willing to accept the lowest interest rate on that tax certificate is the bidder who will ultimately be successful. So it's an interesting concept, because what happens is the county is going to say, all right, there are $2,000 in back taxes owed. Then you, Jamie, you might say, okay, well, I'll pay the $2,000 and my money will earn interest at 18%. Then I come in and I say, well, I will pay that $2,000, but my money will earn interest at 17%. And there is a bid down, and whoever ultimately bids the lowest interest rate on that amount wins the tax certificate. The county then literally gives a tax certificate, issues it for the property, and that tax certificate is a lien against the property for the next 2 years. And during that 2-year period, the certificate holder, be it you, Jamie, or be it me, or whoever else won that lowest bid, is earning interest on their $2,000 at the interest rate that they bid at and won the certificate at. So their money is earning that interest rate. And what's interesting is that at the end of this 2-year period, if anyone has come in and redeemed, then you, the certificate holder, have earned your money back, the $2,000 you paid, plus the interest that you bid on it, maybe 18%, maybe 10%, but you get paid your interest. If you don't get paid your interest at the end of those 2 years and your principal, then what you can do is you can go into the county and tell the county, I want to redeem my certificate for a tax deed, okay? Now, here's the beauty of the tax deed, Jamie. Mm-hmm. If you get a tax deed on property, it will wipe out almost every other lien attaching to that property, including a mortgage lien. So you're, on the one hand, either going to get back your principal and interest, or on the other hand, you're going to get your property, you're going to become the owner of that property, free and clear of all liens.
Now, but title companies don't insure over a tax deed. They have to go through a quiet title action. Am I correct? Can you explain a little bit more about what the quiet title action is?
Absolutely. Now, what happens is there's a very rigorous statutory and administrative process by which Florida allows for these certificates to be issued and then for the tax deeds to be issued. So title companies are inherently, for lack of a better word, afraid of the process. So they do not want to insure over a tax deed for fear that someone in the chain has messed up the process.
Okay.
You can account for this in three different ways. The first one, what you just said, is you can do what's called a quiet title action, and I do these all the time for my clients. My client comes in and says, I have a tax deed. What I will do is, under the statutes, there's a very specific way that we go about. We name all of the prior owners of the property back to the date on which the tax deed was issued in what's called a quiet title suit, and I ask the court to quiet title in my client, the tax deed holder, the actual owner of the property. And basically what that is doing is giving the title company the assurance that everything was done properly. The other thing that you can do is title companies, many of whom with whom I work, will after 4 years have passed from the issuance of the tax deed, as long as there's no one coming out claiming any title or interest in the property, they will then go ahead and write title or insure title for the property. And then the last thing you can do is if the former owner of that property from whom you got the tax deed, if they're willing to give you a quitclaim deed to the property, quitclaiming all of their interest in the property, I find that many title companies will write title in that scenario.
And speak a little bit to the superiority of property taxes. They pretty much trump every other lien, am I correct?
It's pretty close. Now, if you actually were to open up Florida Statutes Chapter 197 and read through it, you'll see a provision in there, and I'm going off the top of my head, but I think it's 197.522. It says that a tax certificate shall constitute a first lien against all on any property. That's not exactly correct. It's mostly correct, but here's where the exceptions lie. One, it doesn't extinguish any other co-equal liens. So if the state of Florida has other tax liens attaching to the property, those won't be wiped out because they're equal to a tax certificate lien. It also wouldn't wipe out a CDD lien, Community Development District lien, because those are treated the same as tax liens on property. So you wouldn't wipe that out. The only other lien that I am aware of you would not wipe out is if there is a federal judgment or federal tax lien which predates, and this is the key part, it has to predate and be perfected before the tax lien attached to the property. Remember when we first began this conversation, I said that the tax lien attached to the property January 1st of the tax year. So the taxes that you're paying right now, or if you didn't pay, a certificate is about to be issued on, those were liens on the property as of January 1st, 2013.
Right.
If the federal government came in with a judgment lien and recorded it December 31st, 2012, in the county where the property is located, the tax lien, the tax certificate, would not wipe out that federal judgment lien. But if the federal government came in on January 2nd of 2013, you would wipe them out.
Hunter, it's Stella speaking. I have a question for you around the fact that the tax lien holder has it for 2 years.
Yes.
What happens with the fact that the taxes are due every year?
Okay, so yeah, you're right, because there's going to be overlap.
Right.
So if a tax deed, let's play it out. So if a tax certificate was issued in 2012, right, for taxes in 2011 that came due,
right,
then you're going to chances are the person who didn't pay their property taxes in 2011 also didn't pay in 2012 and also didn't pay in 2013. Now, so we have a certificate out there dated 2012. We have a certificate out there dated 2013, and we're about to have another certificate dated on that property 2014. If the 2012 certificate holder says, I want to get a tax deed on the property, I want to convert my certificate to a tax deed, that holder of the 2012 certificate goes to the clerk of court in that county and applies for the tax deed. And at the time they apply, that holder of that certificate has to redeem the 2013 and the 2014 certificates. So that 2012 certificate holder has to come out of pocket to pay the principal and interest that was bid on the 2013 and 2014 certificates. You also have to pay an administrative fee to the clerk of court. But once you've paid all of that, then it will go up for tax deed auction.
That's some great information. Hunter, stay on the line here. I got to take a quick break here to hear from our sponsors. If you're just tuning in, you've been listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 Wins WHNZ. Back in a moment.
Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage want you to experience the thrill of one-day underwriting and the comfort in knowing your loans will be clear to close in record time. While the competition looks to a lost closing date, Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage focus on their 12-day clear to close. They do this by utilizing their world-class operations staff to underwrite your loan within 6 hours, process your loan in 12 days, and have your loan closed in time. Underwritten in 6 hours, cleared to close in 12 days. Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage. Since opening its doors 120 years ago, Stewart Title Company has established a lasting legacy of providing professional title services. Even other title insurance companies know Stewart Title Company because they do their actual underwriting for them. Stewart is here to provide a wide range of resources to help improve any real estate transaction. To learn more about protecting yourself against hidden title hazards that may threaten your financial investment, call Melissa Stoddard at 813-431-8025. That's 813-431-8025.
Thinking about buying a home? Find out how the Hud Home Store can help you. Visit HUDHomestore.com. Look at HUD homes available for sale near you or nationwide. Why Hud Home Store? HUD will pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing cost. The price of the home is based on an FHA as-is appraisal, which is already completed, saving you an average of $400. And there is an owner-occupant priority bidding period during the first 30 days. Want to know more? Visit HUDHomestore.com.
You're listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show with local expert Jamie Meloni. Now, here's Jamie.
Hi again, everybody, and thanks for staying tuned in to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 Wins WHNZ. You'll find my show on every Mondays at noon, so I invite you to please tune in as my show aims to become your information source for the Tampa Bay real estate market. We've been talking with Hunter Norton. He's an attorney with Shoemaker, Loop, and Kendrick here in the second part of the show. And I still got him on the line here. So, Hunter, you and your firm deal a lot with tenant law and evictions in Florida, and the Landlord-Tenant Act governs this relationship. First, what constitutes a valid lease agreement in Florida? And explain to the audience how the eviction process works here in Florida.
Sure, I can do that. Well, first off, what constitutes a valid lease in Florida? It depends on the length of the lease. I think there's a common misperception out there, and I deal with it daily, that if you have just spoken with a landlord and the landlord has orally or verbally given you permission to rent a home or an office space, that you don't have a valid lease, and that's simply incorrect. Oral tenancies in Florida are binding. Now, there is an exception to that. That exception is if the tenancy is going to be longer than 1 year, then it needs to be in writing and witnessed. There needs to be 2 subscribing witness signatures on that lease. So if your tenancy is greater than a year, then it would need to be in writing. But if it's less than a year, it does not need to be in writing.
Okay.
And I also wanted, you said that you were governed by the
Landlord-Tenant.
Florida statutes, landlord-tenant, right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly right. It's Florida Statutes Chapter 83. But I think it's important to know that the landlord and the tenant, in the context of their lease, can agree to different terms that aren't necessarily in the statutes. And let me give you a good example, because you wanted to know what the process was for an actual eviction if you're a landlord. And let's say your tenant hasn't paid you rent, and we're dealing with just a residential home. In that instance, what the statute says is the first thing you have to do is you have to give the tenant notice, a 3-day notice, by posting at the premises or by mailing it to the tenant, which basically says, you haven't paid me rent, here's how much is owed, you have 3 days to pay me. But a landlord and a tenant can agree to a different period of time or to eliminate that period of time. So if in the written lease it says no notice, then you don't need to give any notice. If in the lease it says 10 days notice, then you need to give it 10 days notice. So the lease ultimately controls the landlord-tenant relationship. And after you give that 3-day notice or 10-day notice or no notice, depending on what the lease says, then the process in Florida can move very, very quickly. Because what will happen next is if the landlord gives that notice and the tenant does not pay rent or leave the premises, then the landlord can file an eviction lawsuit. So you go to the courthouse, you file your lawsuit, and here's the really powerful part for a landlord is that in a typical lawsuit, when I sue someone because you didn't honor your contract or do something else, the other side, the defendant, will need to answer or respond to that complaint in 20 days. But when it's a landlord and tenant situation, the tenant has 5 days to respond to the complaint. So we cut that time from 20 days down to 5 days. Not only that, but for the tenant to come into court and maintain any defenses to the eviction process, the tenant has to deposit into the registry of the court the amount of rent that the landlord says is past due. And if you think about it, that makes perfect sense because we're already dealing with a situation where a landlord may be dependent on the rent to pay the mortgage, for example. We don't want to extend that period any more than is necessary, which might result in a foreclosure of the property against the landlord. So the Florida legislature and Florida courts have said, we're going to protect the landlord by requiring the tenant to deposit all rents that are alleged to be due and owing into the registry of the court so that the landlord knows that that money is there when and if he needs it. And the landlord can even ask the court during the pendency of the eviction to disperse those funds to him so that he can pay the mortgage on the property or maintain the property as is necessary. The only exception to that, Jamie, is there is something that is sometimes utilized, but it's not very common. A tenant can file with the court what is called a motion to determine the rent, so that if the landlord put in there, hey, you owe me $5,000 for the past 5 months of rent that you haven't paid me at $1,000 per month, and the tenant says, no, I have only missed 1 month's payment, I only owe you $1,000, the tenant can file with the court what's called a motion to determine rent and attach to that motion copies of any documents which establish the amount of money that the tenant has paid to the landlord. Then the court will have a hearing on that matter and tell the tenant exactly how much money needs to be deposited into the registry of the court, and then the tenant needs to comply with that if the tenant wants to continue to defend the eviction action. But typically what happens is the tenant does not do that. The court just enters a judgment for possession because under the statute it says there's not even a need for hearing, for further hearing or notice if the tenant does not deposit that rent into the registry of the court. So the court simply issues you a judgment for possession, and that judgment for possession directs the clerk of court to give you what's called a writ of possession. And that's the key document because the writ of possession essentially allows the sheriff to put the landlord back into possession of his property. And what happens is the landlord will take from the clerk that writ, deliver it to the sheriff. The sheriff will thereafter contact the tenant by posting that writ at the premises, and the writ says, you have 24 hours to leave, and if you don't leave, the sheriff will remove you from the premises and put the landlord back into possession.
And I think you had mentioned when we talked last, in your experience, you've never seen a tenant actually deposit monies into the court registry. Is that correct in your experience?
That's correct. I mean, I've been doing this for, going on 9 years now, and not once in my experience have I ever seen a tenant actually deposit the rent. I have had tenants who filed motions to determine rent. I've actually gone through hearings where the court has said this is how much is owed. Tenant, you have 24 hours to deposit this into the registry of the court, so I've gone that far in the process. But I've never had a tenant actually deposit the rent. Now, that's not to say that I haven't had tenants, settle with me. I've certainly had tenants pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, can we work something out? And, obviously an amicable resolution, if we can reach it, is always the path that we want to take. We don't want to engage in full-blown litigation if we don't have to. No one wants to go through a full-blown eviction. Sometimes it's necessary, but we don't want that. So if we can work something out, we will work something out. So I've had tenants call me, and we've worked those things out before. In fact, I've represented tenants before against landlords, and we've worked things out. But in my experience, I've never actually seen a tenant deposit the rent into the registry of the court.
That's very interesting. Well, Hunter, we're running up against the end of the show. You've gotten some great information out to the audience. Real quick before we go off air, give out your contact information for the audience and how you can help them out.
Absolutely. I'm based in Sarasota, but Shoemaker has offices in both Sarasota and Tampa. My number I can be reached is at 941-366-6660 or hnorton at slk-law.com.
Hunter, thank you very much for coming on the show. To the audience, if you didn't get that information, he'll be up on my website here within a couple of days in the past guest section. But if you want to reach out to him, I highly recommend him. I've known him for a few years, and he's a great attorney here in the Tampa Bay region, specializing down in Sarasota specifically. Hunter, thank you very much for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me, Jamie. Have a great day.
All right, you too. If you're just tuning in, you've been listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 WHNZ, WHNZ. And again, you'll find this show on every Mondays at noon, so I invite you to please tune in as my show aims to become your information source for the Tampa Bay real estate market. On the first half of the show today, we were talking with Michael Meloni. He was a New York State-based appraiser with also ties to the Naples, Florida region. Had a great conversation about real estate in both New York and the Naples area. And we just closed up the interview with Hunter Norton. He's an attorney with Shoemaker, Loop, and Kendrick down in the Sarasota region, but that firm represents clients all across the Tampa Bay region. So I invite you to reach out to them for all of your legal needs, especially with regards to eviction and property tax certificates, which is going to be applicable to the time that we're in now, as the taxes for 2013 come due as of the end of this month, at which point they will go delinquent. Again, you've been listening to the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show here on 1250 WHNZ, WHNZ. I invite you off air to my website, tampabayradio.com. Again, tampabayradio.com. And also you can get me by my phone, 813-760-8516 for all your real estate needs. Thank you all very much for listening to the show, and I'll see you all again next week at noon.
The opinions, viewpoints, and promises made